Hey everybody, I'm Cowboy Bob Orton, WWE Hall of Famer. You want to see a little bit of me? Watch Hannibal TV, baby, because I'm coming at you.
So I'll jump right into it. I'm with WWE Hall of Famer Bob Orton Jr., who's the son of Bob Orton Sr., and the father of WWE superstar Randy Orton, who's had a great career so far. To start this off, could you tell us what it was like growing up the son of a famous wrestler?
Well, we traveled a lot. I went to 12 different schools because at that time, like Florida was a territory. Everybody'd go to Florida for years, maybe 2 or 3, and then you'd go to Georgia. You know, just all over the country were different territories. So back in those days, wrestlers would work a territory and then they'd go to another territory. As a result of that, we moved a lot. So growing up with Dad, that's what I was used to. But you know, at the same time, it's kind of hard on a kid to do that because you never really make any friends. But I got to go to the wrestling matches a lot and meet a lot of the wrestlers, and that was fun. You know, when I was a kid.
Did any kids at school ever give you a hard time about wrestling?
Well, they did some, and then when I was 9 years old, I started amateur wrestling and got to be pretty salty. So after a while, kids would try me and then they stopped. You know, back when you're that age, they bully you, but once you stand up to people and you know, take them down and smack them upside the head, they kind of leave you alone.
Did you play any other sports other than amateur wrestling?
I played basketball one year when I went to a school that didn't have wrestling. See, Fordland, Missouri. I played basketball that year and was the highest scorer on the team and never having played basketball before. But you know, I was an athlete.
How tall were you at your peak?
6'3".
6'3". Did you have, or were you close with Barry Orton, your brother?
You know, I was 8 years older than Barry.
Okay.
And by the time that I got on the road and stuff, Barry was you know, 13 years old or so. So not really, not when he was old enough to realize what was going on. I was already gone and out of the house and stuff.
And when did you start training with Hiro Matsuda for professional wrestling?
Must have been 71 or 2.
And that was just, you kind of had enough of school, you didn't want to pursue it, and you wanted to go into your father's profession?
Yeah, I always wanted to be a wrestler. You know, always wanted to be a wrestler. I went to college, but it was a waste of time because I wanted to wrestle.
We've heard the stories about Hulk Hogan getting his leg supposedly broken by Hiro. Did you have any issues with the training there, with them trying to rough you up?
Not at all, but you mentioned Hogan. I got a story. When I first met Hogan, he played bass guitar in a band in Tampa, Florida. And I was the Florida heavyweight champion at the time, but I only weighed about 210, you know, maybe 212. And I went to a bar after the matches where Hogan was playing. Of course, I didn't know who it was at the time. And the band went on break, and I decided I might as well go home. You know, I'd been out, you know, late enough. I was walking out to my car, and I hear this fella go, "Hey, Mr. Orton. Mr. Orton." I turned around and looked, and it was Hogan, who was a big man. And at that time, me being kind of a small heavyweight in Florida where wrestling was hot, there were a lot of times I had to fight a little bit, you know, because people, you know, I was smaller and they thought, you know, tall and skinny.
Yeah.
And they thought they could handle me. And I looked at how I go, oh boy, here we go again. But he was very polite, and I told him to go to the Sportatorium and see Hiro Matsuda, because he asked me about how to get into professional wrestling. Now, he would have got in anyway and everything else. I'm not saying that I've got anything to do with Hogan's success, but it's kind of an interesting story. You know, I met him, you know, coming out of the bar that night, and he did go to Hiro, and I did hear that Hiro hurt him or something, but
He exaggerates a lot, so I'm not sure
Yeah.
if the leg was actually broken or not.
Well, you know, it's his story. He can tell it however he wants to.
Yeah.
But Hiro, you know, he wasn't easy on anybody. Now he might have been a little bit easier on me because of Dad and everything. I don't know, but he put you through your paces,
Okay.
which was good. When you come out of the sportatorium, you knew what you were doing.
And you spent some time in the Mid-South territory, I guess, after Florida. Who was running Mid-South?
Mid-South is what states?
The Oklahoma, Louisiana.
That was Bill Watts, and they wasn't doing Oklahoma at the time. I left before they started doing Oklahoma. It was miserable. I was there with Paul Orndorff and Bob Roop and Junkyard Dog. It was great when you'd go into New Orleans with the dog. Who dat said they're gonna beat that dog? And it was just fantastic. And I'd be working on the dog and people to start that chant, and he'd get goosebumps. And I'd say, dog, take it easy now, take it easy. Because when he started getting them goosebumps, he'd get up and knock the shit out of you.
Yeah.
But I'd see them goosebumps. Now, dog, take it easy.
I heard there was serious problems with fan attacks there for wrestlers who were working them.
And you know, I don't, I know there were a couple of 3 towns down there you had to watch yourself. Houma, Louisiana, I know that's down there in the bayous, and them old boys down there, they like to fight, I guess. I remember fighting my way out of the ring a couple times in Houma, but not so much anywhere else.
Were those the days before Junkyard Dog got into his personal issues? Was he pretty good?
Personal issues, I know nothing about Junkyard Dog and personal issues. When I left Louisiana, he was still there, of course, and I didn't see him again until we were in New York together.
And what did you think about working for Bill Watts? A lot of people have varying stories. Some people love him, other people didn't like it.
Oh, you know, to sit here and knock somebody and they're not here to defend themselves is probably not the right thing to do, but I wouldn't let Bill Watts watch my poke. I wouldn't let him watch my kids. But, you know, what he did is what he did. God bless him for it, you know. I don't care.
And at what point did you start calling yourself Cowboy?
That was me in Atlanta, Georgia. Gary Hart was the booker. He was also managing me and Dickie Slater. And Slater had, gosh, I can't remember. You know, you get old and you forget things, but Slater had some kind of little thing. You know, I don't remember. But Gary Hart thought my name was a little too plain. So he says, I'm going to make you Cowboy Bob Orton. And that was how I did. I went out and bought a hat and a vest, and there I went.
Why does everyone consider Dick Slater one of the toughest wrestlers of all time when they talk about tough wrestlers?
Dick could handle himself.
Yeah.
Before we teamed up, me and him got into it in Orlando. They pulled us apart, but he split my eye. He was quick with a sucker punch. But he was a tough guy, no doubt about it. But there's a lot of tough guys in wrestling. Most of them are not that tough, but they pick the people they're going to mess with. Slater was tough.
Okay. And you had a first stint in WWF, I think it was still called at that time, doing a little match with Bob Backlund.
Yeah.
What are your memories of that, and who brought you in for that run?
Oh, Bob Backlund is one of the strongest guys I've ever been in the ring with. I mean, just strong, scary strong. But I loved wrestling him. It was a lot of fun to wrestle him, and he was over. And who brought me in? I was there that first time 6-7 months, and I think I just called up and asked if I'd come work up there. You know, I'm not sure. It's been a long time ago. I've been hit in the head many, many times. I don't remember a lot of stuff.
And they gave you a main event program there right away?
Yeah, I worked with, they treated me well. Yes, I did well. Worked with Bob a lot. Worked with Andre, which was a blast. But,
Do you have any stories about Andre the Giant that you could tell?
He was a lot of fun to be around. Just played a lot of cribbage. I played him a lot of cribbage. He had me slam Chief Jay Strongbow one night for a rib. But the rib backfired because I slammed Strongbow, and I did it from about that high off the mat. I mean, and he just wouldn't get up. I said, "Nope, you slammed me. I'm not getting up."
Oh, he didn't like to be slammed or anything?
Exactly. Well, gosh darn, he was well into his I don't know, 60s probably.
Okay.
But I did it very carefully, but Andre said for a rib, but that's how Andre was. He dated my sister for years.
Oh,
so
right.
So yeah, he took good care of me. Matter of fact, in the garden when I wrestled him, he said, "Slam me," and I just laughed.
What was your reaction when you found out he was dating your sister? Because I guess there's nothing you could really do to protect her against a guy that huge if...
Well, I asked her, and she wouldn't tell me.
Okay. Now, you worked with Wahoo McDaniel in NWA, and I guess he's the opposite of Chief Jay Strongbow. He was known for being a really hard worker in the ring.
Yeah.
Any memories of wrestling him?
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with Wahoo. He had to watch him. He threw them chops in there pretty good. And Wahoo, I used to drink a lot of beer, but I did so after the matches. Sometimes Wahoo would get on the firewater a little bit before it, so you kind of had to watch him. But I had a lot of respect for him. What a tough man.
And you had the famous incident in the NWA when you and Dick Slater collected Harley Race's bounty on Ric Flair and did the pile driver. That ended up being a huge angle. Any memories of that?
Not really. I didn't work with Flair too much on that thing. Harley did.
Okay.
Got most of the stuff. I think I had maybe one match with Rick all around. That was it. I don't know. I had him in a headlock one night, and I took him down, and I said, "Rick, I'm sorry, but Vince told me I got to beat you." And then I laughed, but I never worked with him again. So the joke was on me.
Because I heard he was like paranoid a lot of the time. Like he didn't like driving with undercard wrestlers and so forth because he's always paranoid about his spots, and sometimes he wouldn't understand a joke.
He was, he had that image he had to protect. I understand and everything, but.
Did you ever get the chance to go out with him in the days when you were drinking?
Oh, of course.
We
wild. Shut down a lot of bars.
He's as wild, I guess, as they say in the bars.
Yeah. He used to have a nice time, no doubt about that. We all drank way too much back in those days. I know all of us did.
He's claimed that he's had sex with thousands of women. Do you think that could be
that? I wouldn't know.
Yeah. But you'd see him with women here and there, I guess, when he's around in bars.
Well, there was always women around, when we'd go out to those places because you go to places where wrestlers would go after the matches.
Right.
And naturally the fans would come too. And of course there was a lot of women that came and everybody had a good time.
Would you say, I know you've been around the business in recent years, would you say there was more groupies in those days than there is now?
Well, I wouldn't really be able to answer that because I'm not around now. So I don't know. but I know things are different. You know, guys fly everywhere now, and you don't stay in the same place, and you know, you're not going there every like 2 or 3 weeks. It's maybe once or twice a year. A lot of guys, Randy has his bus, so he never really goes anywhere except you know, the bus. I think a few guys have that, but
That's a special privilege, I guess, if you've proven yourself over a long period of time and they think you're valuable enough, I guess, to have your own bus.
well, I think Randy got the bus so he wouldn't get in situations that weren't safe.
Okay.
So, you know, he's got his bus, he's got his a little kitchen, and, you know, he's got his food. If he wants to have a beer or something, he does it on the bus. And it's just a safe way to travel.
At what point did you first meet Roddy Piper?
I think I met Roddy in the Carolinas when we were down there together. We had an apartment together for a while. And traveled a lot, and then we got together in New York. When I went back in, he was already there, and we started doing a thing where I was the bodyguard.
Was it his idea to bring you in as the bodyguard because of your friendship?
You know, I'm not sure if it was him or Vince or probably them, you know, together. I never did meet with Vince and talk about stuff like that. You know, Roddy did. So I'm pretty sure that Roddy had some input. And it was a good thing, you know, it worked.
Yeah. What was being on the road with him like?
It was a blast. Never a dull moment. He could talk if you had a 5-hour trip, he could talk for 5 hours, no problem. Never repeat himself. And the next night do the same thing. You never hear the same story twice. He was just a blast. When you saw him on TV, you saw Roddy Piper. He was the same way. Now I'm sure around his family and everything, no, but when he was with me, he was just rowdy.
I read a story online that you apparently got arrested in Fresno one night with him and tased.
Well, I actually didn't get arrested.
Okay.
Roddy and Don might have. That was the night that I was in the back of a rental car. Don was driving, and he went to drive over the railroad tracks, and I guess he missed the road because the rear tire back then, there was still rear wheel drive.
Yeah.
And that rear wheel caught the track and just slid us down the track, I don't know, 100 feet or something from the road. And we tried to get the car out, we couldn't. And sure enough, here come a train, but it was on a different track, thank God. And we got back to the road, a cab went by, we took a cab and just left the car there. And I was sleeping in my bedroom, or my motel room. It was one of those Holiday Inns that the rooms are like a round courtyard, but it's all indoors.
Oh, I think they call it an atrium or something.
Yeah, okay, good. I don't know them words like that. But anyway, the atrium, so I was, 5th, 6th floor. I get a phone call. They got your 2 buddies down here handcuffed and they're getting ready to take them to jail. They want you to come bail them out. I thought it was a rib. I'd been sleeping. And I got up and I was going to look over the railing at, it's probably 3 in the morning, so there's nobody around. But I sleep nude. And I couldn't quite see. And all of a sudden I heard click. I'd locked myself out of the room naked. So I had to call down, hey, so the cops come up to let me in my room, but the cops come up with the manager. Or the guy with the key anyway, whoever the hell it was, I don't know. But I just tucked everything in, sorry. He let me in my room, and I go in my room, and I'm putting on my pants, and the cops start to come in my room. I said, "You guys can't come in my room." This cop shot me 3 times with the taser, and I pulled out the tasers and threw them back at him and said, "I'm going to throw you over that rail." And of course, all the cops grabbed him and got him out of there. And they were pretty nice after that because the guy had just shot me, so I'm sure I could have done something. I'm in my room, the guy comes in and shoots me. I probably could have, but it's just shit that happens. But anyway, I bailed Roddy and Don out. But no, they never took me or anything. I was never under arrest again. I didn't do anything. I was up in my room and I wasn't driving the car, so the only thing I'd done is have a few drinks.
So the story, the exaggerated story that you had to be tasered to subdue, that's someone exaggerating that. You were really wrongfully tasered. You were just...
Well, yeah, definitely wrongfully tasered. I still don't know why the guy did that, but the first thing that went through my mind is this son of a bitch just shot me. But then it's kind of funny how your brain works, because then I remember them little trailers. A bullet wouldn't have a trailer. So all that shit's going through your mind real fast. And I looked down and I seen them 3 darts sticking out of my belly. And I just jerked them out and threw them down. Told him this was it for him, But no, there was no reason for that. I was just putting on my jeans. And had done nothing wrong.
Right.
Except got a phone call to come down and help your buddies. But like I said, I thought it was a rib, so I thought I'd look over first and click the door. If I wouldn't have locked myself out of my room, they'd have never come up. That would have never happened. I'd have went down and went and got them out just like I did, so it's no biggie.
Now, when you saw Hulk Hogan in WWE, was that the first time that you ran into him since the discussion you had in Florida?
Probably. Probably.
Did he have any recollection of you from those days, or?
He was always real nice to me, real kind to me when we went out and when we had our matches. It was easy, just. Yeah.
You had a match with him on the very first episode of Saturday Night's main event.
Saturday Night Main Event. I sure did.
What was your impression of WWE being in such a great time slot on NBC? I guess it was replacing Saturday Night Live once a month or
something like that. Oh, it was great. Back in that time when Vince got everything going, it really took off. It was a great thing. That Saturday Night Main Event was a great thing. Dick Ebersol and everything.
What were your first impressions of Mr. T when they brought him in to work with you guys?
Oh, I thought Mr. T was a nice enough fellow. Never gave me any hard times or anything. I had a match with him in Phoenix. After the match was over, I saw him back there on the oxygen. At that time I used to smoke a little bit. I had a beer in one hand and a cigarette in the other, and he asked me if I wanted some oxygen. I said, no, I'm good.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Now, I interviewed Dave Schultz recently, and he told me a story about, I don't know if you were there that night in LA when he supposedly had the confrontation with Mr. T. Were you around that night?
No, I saw the thing with him and Stossel. I was sitting as closest from me and you from that, and what nobody ever talks about is before the interview started, David said, "You can ask me anything you want. Don't ask me if wrestling's fake." Stossel's reply was, I won't ask you if wrestling's fake. And the first thing out of when the interview started, the first thing out of Stossel's mouth was, "Hey, is wrestling fake?" And David slapped him, sounded like a shotgun going off. It was great. And Stossel gets up and takes off running down the hall, a gutless geek. And David goes, "Come on back here and I will slap you again." But I thought David got a very, very raw deal on that because, what bullshit, people coming, especially when you tell a guy don't do this and the guy says I won't and then he does. I mean, if anyone deserved to get slapped upside the head, it was Stossel.
Yeah, because he's basically insulting your livelihood.
Yeah, and besides that, he's a liar. Ain't got time for liars.
And David actually told us that he did more interviews that night after that, so he couldn't have been hurt that badly because I guess he stuck around.
Just ridiculous. You know how folks are.
Yeah, he had mentioned to us that he wasn't actually fired for that, but I guess Chief Jay Strongbow had accused him of threatening Mr. T, but he said he got along with Mr. T and nothing like that happened, so he felt that they kind of just used that as a reason to get rid of him. But I guess you weren't there that night in LA when that allegedly happened.
No, I wasn't. I gotta shut this thing off. I don't know what. Oh.
I don't even use a cell phone. I hate them so much.
I still got the old flip phone. Everybody's got them. Hell, their computers they carry around now, just about. But wonder why it's not shutting off. Maybe I don't know how to work it. I'm not very high tech. There it is.
There was actually a fan that told me a story that I guess you went into his cell phone store at one point, maybe a few years ago, to try and get an explanation of how to text. And he said you told them you were in the main event of WrestleMania One and you shouldn't have to worry about how to text or not. I don't know if you remember that, but
No, I don't
he said you were very nice anyways, but he found that funny. Do you want to tell us about WrestleMania One?
Gosh, I just remember I beat Paul Orndorff with the cash.
For you guys, was that just another night at the office because you're wrestling so much, or did you know it was something really special?
Well, it was something really special because we knew that it was make or break for Vince, and obviously it was make.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a big deal. But as far as the performance, no different.
At that time, did you start finding yourself getting recognized more on the street in everyday life than you had previously been?
Well, no, because we were pretty well known anyway.
Right.
But it certainly put wrestling on the map and opened the doors for Vince to go not only nationwide but worldwide.
How did you get along with Cyndi Lauper when you guys were working with her leading up to that show?
Just say hi. That's all. I didn't spend any time with them. Roddy did all that stuff.
And I guess you worked with Captain Lou a bit when you were working with Cyndi. Any thoughts on him?
Lou, he saved my dad's life in Sunnyside Gardens back in the 60s. I always had a lot of respect for Lou. Loved him. What a nice man.
Saved his life from a fan incident, or was it a medical thing?
Yeah, Lou come to the ring with a gun that someone had I forget exactly because I was real young. I was only about 11 or 12 then, and I wasn't there. I just heard Dad talk about it. But they had a riot, him and Buddy Rogers, against Rocca and somebody. Antonino Rocca and somebody. Maybe that the other guy that didn't have shoes at that time, and he was Italian or Spanish or something. But anyway, they had a riot, and they couldn't get out of the ring, and Lou went down to the ring with a gun, and people backed off enough for Dad to get out of there.
Did you ever get the chance to see Buddy Rogers wrestle in person when you were young?
Yeah.
What did you think about him?
He even gave me a dollar bill that he signed, and I still got it at home in my drawer.
That's probably worth more than $1 now.
Oh, it was a silver certificate too. It wasn't a Federal Reserve note.
Okay.
So it was a real dollar.
Wow. So he had a nice side to him.
Yeah.
And you brought up the cast earlier for WrestleMania One. What was the origins of the cast, and how did you like having to wear it all the time?
Yeah, it didn't bother me any, and I got around wearing it all the time because I started out with a real cast, and it was just, first they wanted me to put it on my right arm. I said, no, I'll put it on my left arm. They said, why? I said, because I need to wipe my ass. I can't do it with my left hand. So, but then I got one of those football arm guards, plastic.
Yeah.
And I taped it.
Okay.
And when I went off the road and stuff, I was home, I could just take it off. It was no big deal.
What did you think about them doing that same angle with Owen Hart about a decade later or so?
I don't think it. There are just certain things that certain people can do, and the first time you do something, it's a novelty, it's unique.
Yeah.
And when someone tries to do it again, not that Owen wasn't very talented, because he was, but there's just a difference in the way people present things, that sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. But I really didn't watch much of that, and I don't know how it worked for all I know. That he didn't wear it that long, I don't think.
No, it may have been. They tried it maybe for about 3 months or so.
Yeah, but I think mine was a couple of years. You've got me, who's probably one of the best in-ring performers ever.
Yeah.
Not tooting my own horn, it's just fact. And like I couldn't try to be Hulk Hogan either. You know what I mean? I mean, there's just certain things that you've got to stay within yourself, do things that you can do. When someone tries to copy somebody else, it never seems to work.
Right. Yeah, I really like that skit you did with Piper on Tuesday Night Titans when the doctor tried to examine the cast and he was quacking.
Yeah.
That was hilarious. You had some matches with Jimmy Snuka. Any memories of working with him?
Jimmy was a night off. People loved him so much, it didn't matter what you did when you went out there.
Rocky Johnson actually told us in an interview that he thinks Snuka probably could have been as popular as Hulk Hogan at one point if he had been.
He might have been as popular as Hogan for a while. They had them both there, and they were selling out everywhere, and so they were both. But Jimmy was people just loved Jimmy.
And also Tito Santana, he was another great wrestler, and you had some phenomenal matches with him.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on those matches?
Oh gosh, night off. Again, Tito was smooth as silk, and just could do anything, no matter what. Tito could do it, no matter what you said. Tito could do it, and he was just a pleasure to be in a ring with.
And he's still wrestling as well now.
I see him every once in a while.
Now you mentioned.
I remember I worked with him one night in New Jersey. I got it. It's had to be 10 or 15 years ago, but I had the flu real bad. My fever, had a real bad fever. But the show must go on. And I know Tito had me in a headlock. And all of a sudden he grabbed my arm. I said, "What are you doing?" He goes, "You're burning my side. You're so hot. I can't work a headlock."
Wow. That's dedication, going to the ring for, I guess, an independent show when you're that sick. And you worked with Paul Orndorff, you mentioned in WrestleMania, but you also had a bunch of singles matches with him. What were those like? Because I heard he was also very intense in the ring. And
Oh, Paul. You know, everyone says this stuff, and I'm sure he was, but I never noticed anything like that. One of the best matches I probably ever had was working an independent show with Paul it was in South Carolina. I think it's a town in Spartanburg or something maybe. But he was the heel, the bad guy, and I was the good guy. And we had decided that we were going to switch roles. And it was the simplest thing in the world. We went about an hour, close to an hour that night. And I went out of the ring on the floor. I said, Paul, hold the ropes for me to come back in. Paul held the ropes for me to come back in. Went another 15 or 20 minutes, and Paul went out on the floor. And I held the ropes for him to come back in, and I just kicked the shit out of him. And that's what, just that simple little thing, switch them people just like that. It's stuff like that that I really enjoyed when you're out there is creating a situation where you've got a crowd and they're going crazy and they're really into it, and you can do things to change their whole attitude about what they're seeing out there. I used to just love to. It's a lost art, I think, but I used to love to do that type of thing.
And I guess now there's more matches on house shows and they're shorter, so it'd be difficult to tell a story like that.
They don't give them much time anymore.
Unless, of course, you're like Randy and you're in the main events. And after Piper left to do movies, you were working as Adrian Adonis's bodyguard for a while. Any thoughts on that?
Oh, Adrian was fun to be around. But, at the same time, even me, I couldn't follow up what I'd done with Piper.
Right.
Because that clicked so well that when we went with Adrian, it was good, but it was never as good as the original. I couldn't follow myself.
Right. I guess you had a real life bond with Piper too, so it's hard to, that translated it.
Yeah.
How did Adrian gain so much weight in a short period of time? Any idea? Because
I would say that he must have really chowed down a lot, because boy did he get big.
in about a 2-year period of time, it looked like at least 50 pounds he put on.
Yeah, he really got big, man.
Were you around when he had that fight with Danny Spivey?
Yes, I was.
What was the details on why that occurred?
Well, it was actually a misunderstanding in the ring. Adrian had said something to the referee, and Dan thought he was talking to him. And Dan popped him, and shit happens. But the problem was, when we went back in the back, Adrian says, I'm going to go. I said, why? He said, don't. And he says, come on. I said, Adrian, I don't want no part of this because I like both you guys. What happened out there, you need to just talk to Danny. But no, he's going to go fight Danny. And Danny's a tough son of a bitch. Another one of them Tampa boys. And Adrian went back in there. I ended up having to take Adrian to the hospital. But, and what happened in there, I think Danny was wrong in the ring. But what happened in the back, Danny had to protect himself. So,
Right.
Like I say, shit happens. but it wasn't, none of it was necessary, which 99 times out of 100 when stuff like that happens, it wasn't necessary.
And both of them actually didn't last in the company too much longer after that. Do you think that had something to do with it?
Oh gosh, probably. I don't know the way McMahon thinks, but I know that he doesn't need shit like that, happening. And probably didn't take much more for somebody to do something that he didn't like, and boom, you're gone. Yeah, I think he fired me 3 times.
Now you both teamed with Don Morocco and faced him in matches. Any thoughts on him overall?
Oh yeah, Don was just easygoing and fun to be around.
Is it true that he was fired for pissing on Nick Bockwinkel? Was that the actual reason?
I don't know if that's true or not. I would say that if he did that would probably be a reason to be fired.
Right. You were managed by Mr. Fuji for a while. Do you have any stories about him or ribs that he's played that you were witness to?
Oh gosh, he was the king of ribs, but to remember when I can't remember stuff like that. But he was Fuji liked you were fine.
Yeah.
When he pulled this stuff, it was on guys that maybe he just, I don't know, just used him for his entertainment, I guess.
And you were just mentioning that you were fired 3 times. I guess one of the times was something that happened at the Calgary airport. It just says that on the internet, but I'm wondering if you could provide any details on what supposedly happened at the Calgary airport.
Well, I was driving from somewhere one night, and I had 4 beers, but I'd had them pretty quick. And I got pulled over for speeding, and they took me in. I blew 1.1. So I had a DUI, and you can't go to Canada if you've had a DUI. Now, I had been going to Canada for years and years and years, but never any problem. Went to Calgary, and they wouldn't let me in. So I had to take a flight back to the States. They put me in jail until I could get on a plane and go back to the States. A pain in the ass, yes. I don't know if that had anything to do with anything, but I seems like I remember telling them I can't go back to Canada. Well, if you can't, I don't know.
So there was no disturbance. Basically, they just wouldn't let you in.
Yeah.
And I guess you went to work for All Japan after that.
Yeah. I worked Japan. Probably went over 4, 5, 6 times a year for a few years. I can't remember how long, but that's all I did there for 4 or 5 years. Just worked my weeks in Japan, and that was it.
I guess Giant Baba was still alive at that time.
Well, I only worked for Baba once, and
Okay.
that was back in the, I think that was in the 70s. And when I worked for Inoki the last times I went over.
Okay. Did you find? I guess he treated you pretty well if you stayed there for 5 years.
Yeah.
And you teamed with Murdoch in Japan a bit.
Yeah.
How was he to hang out with?
Oh God, Dick was a blast. God bless him. We just, boy, we had fun over there. We we had the big tournament in Japan that they had, once a year, I guess, and had me and Murdoch made it to the finals against the Von Erich brothers. So a little backstory. me and Don Kernodle won the World Tag Team Championships in North Carolina. In the semifinals, we had the Von Erich brothers. The Von Erich brothers said that their daddy had told them that they can't lose, so they had to get disqualified because they couldn't get beat. So anyway, fast forward to Japan, when me and Murdoch are in the finals with the Von Erichs. And they come over and they go, Bob, we want to take the fall on you. I said, no. They go, what do you mean no? I said, my daddy called me and he told me that I can't drop the fall to the Von Erichs. So the little Japanese guy leaves and comes back. And Murdoch, can we take the fall on you? Murdoch says, no, I'm with him. So the Japanese guy goes back over. I said, Dickie, I said, we'll get out there in the middle of the match. I'll just have one of them catch me in something, 1, 2, 3. I said, it's no big deal. I said, I'm just fucking with him. He goes, I know. So anyway, they come back and no, we ain't doing it. If they want to beat me, tell them to fucking beat me. So me and Murdoch go to the ring. And we're waiting, and we're waiting. All of a sudden, the fucking music starts, and here come two little Japs. The Von Erichs wouldn't even come to the ring. Oh, God. Guy, you know, oh, God bless his soul. Takes all kinds, I guess.
Yeah. Now, you had a little run in WCW in 1989. Any memories of that?
WCW in 1989. 89. WCW. Who's WCW? Was that
was
Crockett?
Yeah, I guess that would have been right around maybe the end of Crockett, maybe the start of Turner. I think they bought it around 89, 90. But
yeah, I don't remember anything. I remember I left down there because I didn't like what they were doing.
Okay.
But I don't remember any run-in with anybody.
Okay. Yeah, no, there wasn't no run-in. It just said that you spent some time there that year, but didn't have any information about matches or anything. So I guess it may have been very brief.
Yeah, I just didn't like what was going on.
And then it said you had one WWE match in '89 against Ted DiBiase in Missouri.
I think that was actually in Springfield, Illinois.
Okay.
Where I worked with Ted. Now, I could be wrong.
And that was, they just brought you in as a...
somebody couldn't make it, and they brought me in because I was close.
And for Randy, did he always want to be a wrestler?
Well, Randy started as an amateur like I did when he was like 9 or 10 or something like that. And so yeah, I think he probably did.
Did you have any problems with him wanting to go into the pro wrestling business?
No, it had done me well, and he sure had the look, no doubt about that. And then what he developed into probably the best they've got today.
Did you have any hand in his initial training?
Yeah, I watched. I'd go down and St. Louis there. They had some guys. Jeez. Oh, it's a shame when you can't remember people's names. But there's some guys that would go work out with him in the gym and from the local promotions, and they would work with him, and I'd sit and watch. And learning the moves and stuff like that was very, very easy for him. And what I talked to him about was ring psychology.
Okay.
And how to put a match together, and that sort of thing.
Did he ever work for Harley Races League at all in those early days?
If he did, it would have just been a shot or two.
Yeah.
Harley was, at that time, Harley was in Eldon, Missouri, which was probably 2.5 hours from us.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, we didn't go down there and train or anything. I do know that Harley had a hell of a school, and there's a few guys that have come out of there that have done pretty well.
Did you get along with Harley?
Yeah.
Yeah, you got along with him.
Yeah.
And I guess Randy, he was picked up by WWE pretty quickly for their development program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I took him. I was just talking to Tony Gria downstairs, and we had talked about when I first brought Randy to the matches in St. Louis there, and I went back. Tony was there, and Jack Lanza, and I just introduced him. This is my son Randy, and he'd like to get into the business, but he had just started junior college, I think. I said, but we would like to wait till the end of the semester. And apparently that wasn't what they had in mind, because it was just a week or two later he was on his way to Louisville.
Okay.
Yeah.
Easy decision for him, I guess.
Yeah.
And are you surprised at how well he's done? As you say,
Not at all.
There's not many better than him.
Not at all. He's got the look. He's got the athleticism. He can do anything. So yeah, there's no surprise at all. Of course, you always wonder, how he's going to do and everything. But when you watch, he's just head and shoulders above the norm.
And any thoughts on you being inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame?
That was an honor and a surprise.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Who was the one that
it
told
was
you?
an honor to be inducted. Yeah.
Was it Randy that first told you, or was it somebody from the office?
Boy, I don't remember. I really don't remember.
And I guess shortly after you were inducted, they brought you in to manage Randy for a while.
Mm-hmm.
What was that like, being on the
It
road
was
with your
fun.
son?
I just had a blast.
And there was some controversy, I guess, I don't know if you could talk about it or not, but something happened in the Hell in the Cell match with The Undertaker that I guess maybe you could elaborate.
No, not really.
Yeah. But that basically something unusual happened, and that was the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But you're still obviously on very good terms with the company, and
Yeah, I've no hard feelings. Hope they don't.
and you've been back several times since in various appearances.
Yeah.
Is there any feud that Randy's had or favorite match that you've seen him in?
Well, him and Cena had some great matches. Him and Mysterio had some great matches. He's had some really good matches over the years with a lot of people, but John, I guess, is what stands out the most, only because I knew them both, and they train together and they come up together, and to see them go to the top like they did together, it was fun to watch.
And you spent a couple of years, or not a couple of years, but you made a few appearances, I guess, in Herb Abrams' UWF. Any thoughts on that?
Herb. Yeah, he had a good array of talent. Slaughter and Tito, and I think Jake the Snake was in there for a while. But he wanted to beat McMahon, which is probably not the best way to go into a venture like he was doing. And in the Northeast, we were drawing, pretty good. But for some reason, and there's another guy I worked for that did the same thing. I forget his name, Paul something. But they wanted to go nationwide, you know, instead of like the other guy was up around Chicago where we, you know, drew pretty good. And the other guy was in the Northeast, and we drew pretty good. But then they're wanting to, with no TV or anything, they're wanting to go nationwide. And they just spent so much money on trans and all that. It's unbelievable what it costs to put a wrestling show on the air.
I'm well aware
and
of
to
it.
move the talent around and everything. I mean, God, it's so many, you know, Vince spends millions a year on that stuff. Not even before he pays these guys. So, I mean, it costs a lot of money. And these guys are wanting to go. You know why? One guy even wanted to go overseas. And I'm just, you know, you ought to just stay where you are and build that. And when that gets good and strong, you don't need to go anywhere else.
Right. Or you expand state by state, close
yeah.
by. But,
Yeah.
And you worked a few shots for Jim Cornette's Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Any thoughts on that and working for Jim Cornette?
Well, I don't know that I ever worked for Jim. I still go down to Smoky Mountain, but it's for Terry Landell.
Okay.
I never really worked for. Matter of fact, I go down there next month, I think, for him, and I go to South Bend tomorrow night, and that'll be Brian Costello's last show in South Bend. He's been running every year for maybe 20 years. I've been on maybe the last 7 or 8, but it'll be his last show. And I think the Knoxville show for Terry might be his last show or next to last show. But he's been running down there for 20 years or something. You know, and I go down and just, I still get in the ring once in a while. I enjoy it. It's fun. But,
and if people want to book you that are watching this, I guess they could contact Herb Simmons. Or
Sure.
He's on Facebook for anyone that wants to look him up. He's the promoter of Southern Illinois
Championship Wrestling. Yeah.
So you could contact him. He helps.
SICW, I guess.
And you still wrestle for them regularly, I guess.
Occasionally, yeah. I try to do just one show a month. You know, if I can do one a month, I'm happy. Now this year I've had 3 or 4 some months, and it's getting to be. I'm spending everything I make going to the chiropractor after I work.
Right.
But it's still fun. You know, I just love it.
Are you doing anything on tonight's event?
No, not that I know of. You can tell I didn't even know how to use it.
No, yeah. So the only way that fans could really figure out what you're doing is to come and meet you when you come to their area.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I get around, you know, a little bit. You know, not a whole lot, but a little bit.
Do you still appear for WWE at Fan Access sometimes?
No. Usually I'm there, but it'll be with somebody else.
And to close this off, is there anything you want to say to your fans that have watched this interview for an hour?
Well, if you spend an hour watching this, you must have been bored out of your mind. But no, I appreciate it, and I appreciate the support over the years, and now give all that support to Randy because he deserves it.
He's without question one of the top wrestlers in the world for sure for the past decade, more than a decade now, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, and we hope to see you in the ring again in the near future.
Well, if you do, bring a camera because it won't last long. It takes a good. There was somebody who said this. The Killer Carl Cox. He just said it takes a good man to beat me, but it don't take him long.